Hi, on tonight's podcast on Sabbath at Midnight, we'd like to welcome Mary A. Joyce from Skyships Over Cashiers to speak on her new book released titled Spy in the Sky. Hi, Mary Joyce. Can you have our listeners get some instructions on how to find you, how to find your books you've written, and your social media?
The book actually started from the research I did for the website that I edit, and it's called skyships.overcashiers.com. All the words are easy to spell, and cashiers is spelled just like a cashier at the grocery store, skyships.overcashiers.com. And the book that you and I decided we would talk about today is my latest one. The short title is Spy in the Sky. It's available on Amazon. The full title is Spy in the Sky. I'm going to go blank on my own title here. Secrets and cover-ups on Earth and beyond. And it deals with things I've discovered using Google Earth on Mars, on the Earth, at the bottom of the ocean, in Antarctica, around the moon, around the sun. And it's stuff that I am really excited about getting this out for people to see. Unlike many books, it's a picture book. I call it an adult picture book. And anything that I have in there, I have the coordinates. So anybody who has Google Earth, which is a free thing to have on your internet, can find these things for themselves. That way we can prove that nobody has been messing with it with Photoshop.
Exactly.
I also love the artwork in the front. Did you choose this? This is beautiful.
I chose that. That's the only thing that I actually bought because the guy did such a great job and it really captured what we were trying to do with the book.
That's awesome. I love it.
It is. The whole book in itself, it's just the way it's laid out, the photographs. I mean, people have to get this book to get a total grasp of what it's all about and the mysteries that are going on. What I wanted to ask you, one of the first questions is, what inspired you to write Spy in the Sky?
I didn't start out to write the book, but I began to collect so much information while doing the research for the website, and it was information I was not seeing anywhere else. And I just wanted it to get out there for people to know because there are a lot of fascinating things that are being kept from us. And I'm all for letting us all know about what's really happening.
Yeah, this is, I mean, I read it, I went through it, and it's amazing. And your findings have gone beyond Richard Hoagland. Obviously everyone knows he identified the face on Mars and the pyramids. But for you, how did you manage to discover these curious things on Mars?
It's not like you can just go to Mars with Google Earth and suddenly turn it on and start looking and find it. Some of these things I found over a period of years. And I'll give you an example. And these things happen about 5 years apart. I found what I call a human habitat in the northern hemisphere. That was pretty good size. It was about 700 feet in length. And it was 5 years later before I found the second one down in the southern hemisphere. It probably was built later because it's larger. It's literally 10 times bigger. It's 7,000 feet in length. And so what I've really done is I've just collected these things to the point where I'm going, this is incredible. We got to get this out there.
Right. Now, these habitats, do you believe these are possibly ancient, or are these more likely contemporary?
More than I absolutely believe they're contemporary. Wow. Now, I cannot tell you if they're humans from Earth that have created those, real good chance of that, or if it's some other kind of being. I lean toward us because I really, really think that the United States has had people up there for some time now, and they're just not letting us know about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories on that. I also, when I went through your book, I see that you found what seemed to be like 27 warehouse type shaped openings on Mars with right angles.
That was really a surprise to me because normally when you look at a planet, you go from right to left or left to right.
Right.
For some reason, my brain went in a different direction and I started scanning from north to south. And I found 27 entrances all in a line, spread out over 16 miles on the planet. And I was flabbergasted. I had seen an entrance or two before, but if I hadn't done that polar scan. I would never have realized that they were lined up that way.
Yeah, it's
And they look contemporary to me. They're very square cut. They look like warehouse entrances, and they vary in size. If I misspeak, the book is always right because I always have to double check on that. But in round figures, the width of those entrances go from like 400 feet to 1,000 feet.
yeah.
They look pretty much identical until you zoom in on the detail around the edges, and then the details are different. So they're not the same picture being shown over and over again.
It's really, I mean, it's really fantastic to see this type of evidence on Mars.
I'm looking at it right now. She talks about it.
Yeah, look at those pictures.
Yeah,
And we're going to post some of these pictures on our website so people can know what we're talking about. Now, did you find any craft on Mars that don't look human? Not a rover.
Absolutely. I found one where it looks clearly like a UFO has parked on the planet, and it's round. It has the raised center in the middle. It casts a shadow on the surface of Mars. And let's see if I can remember statistics here. Seems like that one's about, I think, 4 miles in diameter, something close to that. And that looks like it's probably an active, functioning UFO. I also have found 2 that have crash landed, apparently, on Mars. And you can see the long skid mark. One of those, the skid mark alone is over 4,000 feet. And
wow.
The neat thing about Google Earth is they have a tool so that you can actually measure things. And in one of the photos in the book, there's a yellow line that goes along the skid mark, and that is a measuring tool for using Google Earth. And I think it's more like 4,400 feet in length. So it's a pretty good skid mark. And then you can see where it's the craft has crashed into the soil of the planet. There's 2 of those pictures of 2 different.
77 miles. That one. It says there's the gold one measures 77 miles before it comes to an end. Is that the one?
No, it wouldn't be. No, that's a different one.
Oh, okay, that's another. That's still amazing.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, I want people to grasp what you just said. A approximately 4 mile diameter craft. I mean, that is massive. That's like Independence Day.
It's a mothership.
One of those ships that I show in the book is about 4 miles in diameter,
That's massive.
and another one's like over 3 miles in diameter. So we are talking very large craft, at least by our standards. Now, I have found some that are much, much larger that fly around the sun, but you may want to talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, that's gonna. Yeah. Now, regarding these ancient races that traverse the skies, can you tell the audience about the Israeli government officials' statement regarding these entities? Do you have that?
Do I?
Yeah, because
I know.
I believe it's in your book. He talks about to the effect that humanity's not ready to deal with these ancient beings, these extraterrestrials.
Are you talking about the man from Israel?
Yes.
There's a professor from Israel. He was in charge of Israeli space security for nearly 30 years. That's the one you're thinking of?
Yes.
And he went public in December of 2020, I believe. And he said that the American astronauts are on the planet and they're working with ETs, and that they have facilities beneath the surface of the planet.
Yeah, that's wild. Someone finally, comes out and talks about this stuff. Now, also regarding Mars,
when somebody like that comes out, his credentials are so good that you can't just blow him off as he's just, I mean, he has a wonderful reputation, and technically he put his reputation on the line when he went so public, and he did it in a big way. That the statement that I have in the book is a direct quote from the Jerusalem Post, which is, like a big time newspaper in Israel.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. When you get an official like that, it's time to, take some, approach that it's real. What this guy is saying, he's not flying off the handle, making stuff up, So yeah, that was a powerful statement from him. And I also on regarding Mars, you have a page on there that you called this picture a rash, and it looks like several cylinder-like structures.
That's a very popular shape too.
Yeah. Do you have any possibility what that could be? I mean, I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, I'll back up a little bit. When I first found that, and this I found many years ago,
Okay.
and it truly, one of the pictures, the original picture, does look like there's a rash.
Yeah.
And I thought, what in the world is this? And when I started to zoom in, there was kind of a metallic reflection, and it had like a tubular shape to it. Very much looks like a metallic structure. I would guess that these are either kind of units where they store things, or they may be living facilities, or there's not enough detail to know exactly what it is, but it's not natural to the planet. It's
like
definitely
domes.
Yeah, it does kind of look like little domes.
Like little domes. Look at.
Now, here's part of the cover up, because I show those pictures,
Okay.
and then on the very next page, I show how they've covered it up, and it's real blurry. You can and throughout the book, there are things where I have been able to save pictures, and then it's sometimes within a day of posting them on our website, skyshipsovercashers.com, they will be blurred out or, somehow destroyed so that people can't see them anymore.
That means the AI is listening. The AI is listening.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So this is more common than I wish it were.
Do you feel that maybe some certain entities, 3-letter agencies, are tracking your website? Because it seems like when you post,
yeah, I
something on
do.
there, it's gone.
I don't like to sound like a paranoid person,
sure.
but yes, I think.
Hey, don't you touch that down now. This Sabbath at midnight, we'll be back any moment. Use this opportunity, hit the head, grab yourself another cup of coffee. Also, if you have some extra free time, like, share, subscribe, tag. That'll be doing us a very great service. I hope you're enjoying the episode, and I hope you're enjoying the entirety of it. I put a lot of time and I put a lot of effort, or we put a lot of time and effort, me and my co-hosts, into this show. So I hope you enjoy it, and it will only get better with people like you standing behind us. Oh, would you look at the time? The Sabbath at Midnight is back.
A really good example of how they do cover-ups is on some of the stuff that I have found in Antarctica. And a couple of years ago, I found 2 large entrances into Antarctica. The largest one was about 300 feet across and 100 feet high. And within a day or two of posting it on the website, it looked like somebody had taken a bottle of India ink and poured it all over it. You could not see it at all. But this cover-up happened in steps. So that was the first cover-up. And mind you, I use the save or print screen all the time when I find things, because I know this kind of stuff happens. So I've been able to save things, and I can show people, or I did show people in the book, how this was covered up in steps. So the first step was like pouring ink all over it. And then I went back and I pulled back so I got a bigger shot so I could see both entrances at the same time. And so briefly, one of the entrances was marked Hollow Earth Entrance 1, and the other one was marked Hollow Earth Entrance 2. That didn't last hardly at all, and there was another mess up with it, and eventually that whole area was turned to a sheet of snow or ice, and you would never ever guess that entrance or those entrances were there. So in my opinion, that's a very active entrance. They didn't want anybody tracking it.
Wow. I don't know, Mary, have you made a correlation between Mars and Antarctica? Because earlier I mentioned the in your book the 27 type warehouse structures at right angles, and then in Antarctica, there's what you say in your book is, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, a third entrance with 27 standing structures sticking out of the ice. 27 in Antarctica and 27 on Mars.
I don't, that's not ringing a bell with me.
Yeah. There's
So you'll have to let me know which one that is, because I don't remember that one.
yeah, it's well, let me see here. Antarctica.
There's definitely a lot of similarities.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities. Now, regarding the moon and Mars, in your book, you found a pyramid on the moon. That's curious.
I did not expect to find anything when I searched the moon, simply because it's well known that NASA has been airbrushing all their finds for literally decades. So the chances of finding something, I thought were nil. I was shocked, truly shocked, to find a white pyramid on the side of the moon facing Earth. It's a white pyramid. It's longer than a football field on each side, exactly 28 feet longer than a football field on each side, which is no small pyramid. And that was the biggest surprise I found about the moon.
Yeah, and also there's those spires sticking out there, those towers also on the moon, and I believe there might be one on Phobos. Is that correct?
I was able to get a copy, and I think other people can find this on the internet if they search real hard. But it is a NASA slide, and it shows where you can see the airbrushing. You can see the strokes where the two towers are. And on the NASA slide, they actually have arrows pointing to it. And there's one line of there's lines of type above and below the actual image.
Right.
And one line says moon tower evidence. Another line says two massive towering structures in terrain covered by tampering applications, which would be like airbrushing.
Yeah.
Tampering applications. But that's straight from NASA.
Yeah, that is totally true. There's ancient. It seems like there's ancient structures on the moon, on Mars, and possibly even Titan. I saw a few photographs from Titan, and it looks like there may be remnants of an ancient civilization there too. Who knows, right?
Who knows? And but I'll have to do some research on that one too. But anyhow, Antarctica has the ancient things too.
Right, right.
In September of 2021, somebody who originally found this began working with me, and we ultimately found 5 ancient cities that are emerging from the melting ice of Antarctica. You can see the square wall structures. You can see how the masses of these buildings stretch out along rivers or along hillsides, just the way cities today will evolve. And what makes this remarkable is that most scientists agree that Antarctica has been covered in ice for about 34 million years. This means these are the oldest structures or most likely the oldest structures on the planet. And people think the Great Pyramid's really old. It's not even 5,000 years old. Compare 5,000 to 34 million. We're talking a really ancient structure.
What's your take on Mars? Because it seems like they're looking at the pyramids and the things you found on Mars. Going to the late David Flynn, he felt that that Mars was shattered in the Bible. That God shattered Rahab, and there seems to have been some kind of galactic war in the ancient times. Do you follow on those lines, or do you have a different hypothesis?
There's been absolute destruction on Mars. I don't think we can zero in on what was the cause of it. Some people think that when the planet where the asteroid belt is exploded, right, that impacted Mars and destroyed the atmosphere. Some people believe that there was fighting on Mars. It was a very advanced culture, and they had either nuclear power or something similar to it, and they destroyed it themselves. Um, there's no way that I have been able to make an absolute conclusion, except you see enough fragments that look like real pieces of buildings uh, that have convinced me that, yes, there was a very high-tech, well-developed culture on Mars in ancient times.
Yeah, and you mentioned that asteroid belt that, you know, some allude to it being Rahab, the remnants of it.
Something had
Now, regarding the moon, you have a transcript from Dawn O'Hare. Are you familiar with that?
I am, and she was one of the first whistleblowers. And in, I think it was 1995, she went public on a Washington, D.C. radio station. This was before podcasts. So if you were on the radio, that was a major way of communicating.
Right.
So she said that they had been covering up thousands of images from Mars, and they'd been doing that for a long, long time. One of the stories that she told, which is told better in the book than I'll be able to tell it now, but she was working in another office that wasn't at NASA, and one of the men from NASA came in there, and apparently she knew him, and he had a big gash on his head, and she, of course, asked him about it, and one of his responsibilities was to destroy photos that had been taken of the moon and perhaps UFOs. And one day he took a little time to look at some of these photos, and the guard that was guarding him whacked him over the head with the butt of his rifle because he wasn't supposed to take time to look at the photos.
Jeez, that's crazy. Regarding, I believe it's World War II and the Nazis. Do you believe that maybe they did find some kind of, Shangri-La, a tropical zone under the ice of Antarctica, and possibly made contact with an ancient race? And
at one point, I lived on Cocoa Beach in Florida, near the Kennedy Space Center, and got to meet an astronaut. Was at his home, got to talk to him. His name was Clark McClellan. He became friends with Wernher von Braun. And so he quoted information in his conversations because the two of them really opened up with each other. And von Braun said that a Shangri-La for Hitler had been built in Antarctica.
Wow, that's amazing. That really is. Now, this man, Clark McClellan, he was trained as an astronaut, but he was also somebody who worked at mission control, so he could rectify problems on a spacecraft from the ground. And on one occasion, he was monitoring the screens, and he saw two astronauts in the open bay of the shuttle talking to a very tall ET who was probably 8 to 9 feet tall. He could see the ET's craft in the background. And he was one of these people who felt like the public had a right to know more than they were being allowed to know. And he talked too much. And that destroyed his career. I think in his later years, and he died about a year or so ago, in his later years, he was just, I think, driving a bus. Wow. Because he was blackballed and couldn't get any jobs. All of his benefits from years of working as an engineer and a spacecraft commander, he lost. And so some of these people who try to bring the truth to us have sacrificed a great deal. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you found starships on the Mars. Did you happen to find the same on, surrounding Antarctica?
Nothing of that size, no. There's one picture in the book where you can see a disc shape that's it's about half of it is beneath the ice or the whatever.
Yeah, that one's very interesting looking. It also has a rim, like you said, like a brim around it.
It has a symmetrical rim all the way around the edge of. That is relatively small compared to what I found on Mars.
Now this this ancient civilization down there, down south. I have a hypothesis that a lot of these advanced civilizations were wiped out during the Younger Dryas event, which is the hypothesis that an asteroid exploded in Earth's atmosphere, causing a great deluge that wiped out, Atlantis, possibly Lemuria, Mu. Do you think that could be, accurate in some sense?
Some of these things in our ancient prehistory, there's no way that we can make absolute conclusions. It could have simply been a major polar shift
Right.
that could have caused these kind of changes. So to attribute it to one thing, you just don't know. I mean, you hear theories about Atlantis again being destroyed from within by people fighting with each other.
Mm-hmm.
What I found interesting, and again, this kind of thing is in the book, the things I found on the ocean floor in the Pacific are totally different than the ones I found in the Atlantic. In the Atlantic, there are pyramidal structures that have been found on the floor of the ocean. And in the Pacific, they're a totally different kind of structure. They're huge, and none of them are pyramids. They have columns. They have airports. In fact, one of the images that really impressed me the most was when I found it truly looks like an ancient runway in I think it's the Sea of California off of Baja, and on the page I have a picture of that, and I also have a picture of an actual airport that's in existence today, and the structure of them is quite similar. The difference is the size. The longest airport in the world right now is just a little bit more than 3 miles in length. This thing in the Baja is, I think it's 89 miles in length.
Right.
That's a humongous difference.
Massive.
Absolutely humongous. And there are stories in the Micronesian islands, the ancient legends that talk about giants flying in big, craft. And they actually found on one of the islands a skeleton that was 10 feet tall.
Oh, yeah.
It had been preserved. So I think we had some very large beings that came from somewhere else that were masters of the skies. And I think they spent some time down here.
Yeah.
And evidence of that is mostly in the Pacific.
Also, regarding these lines right here in the Gulf of Alaska, these very specific 1, 2. That's very interesting. It's on page 50, the evidence of an ancient civilization off the Alaska's coast. There's like a very prominent, looks like a claw mark down in the middle of the ocean. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and there's all of these are totally unnatural, and I originally started with something that I did not discover. There is a very large structure that was discovered a number of years ago off of Malibu, California.
Yes.
It has giant pillars holding up a very heavy, thick roof. So I decided to start exploring the ocean along the coast, and I ended up exploring from Alaska down to Baja, and I found I found evidence of ancient structures on many places between those 2 points.
This is a very awesome book. I've just been looking at the whole time, and it's like you said, it's like a picture book for adults because you get sucked in by looking at the pictures, and you have enough to read to get what you want. It's beautiful. It's very straightforward, but also very interesting. I'm looking at all these structures as you're going over it.
Yeah.
It's very amazing. These structures are just crazy. They're very they're man-made or whatever, made by an intelligent being. Yeah.
Made them somehow or another.
Right.
But I'll tie this in again with another example of how things are covered up. I found 2 pyramids south of Paradise Island in the Bahamas. Now we're in the Atlantic now. Mm-hmm. And again, right after posting that on the website, it looked like somebody took a photographic strip, like a Band-Aid, and put it right over where those
2
pyramids were.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible that
these
the
are
extent.
very obvious. These, right here. Look they have the strip right there. It goes right across, like it's very obvious, like someone got tape and put it right there.
It's a photographic strip, but it does look like a Band-Aid that they just punched right down there.
That's amazing. Those two pyramids are amazing. They're like twins right there, right? Obviously. Two perfect pyramids.
The first time I ever had a hint of something like this was when I was living on Cocoa Beach, and I was with a friend, and we were at the bar at the dock or the pier in Cocoa Beach, and got into a conversation with a young couple, and they were divers, and they were so excited because they had discovered a pyramid off the coast of Vero Beach. And that's the first time I ever heard of this kind of thing, and that goes back to the 80s. And what happens is that it's a sandy bottom in the Atlantic, and so when big storms come up, the sand on the bottom gets pushed around, and that's when these pyramids will start showing up, so that you can actually see them. That's also when the treasure hunters will go out and fly in very low in planes searching for wreckages, and because they all know after a storm you got a better chance of finding something. And then the sands will shift and they'll get covered up again.
True. Yeah, especially after a storm. That's an amazing find. And in your book, that's the first time I ever read about anything with pyramids being in that area. I mean, I heard about Cuba and other parts of the world, but I never, ever heard that off the coast of Florida. Never.
Even better. We got.
Yeah. In fact, the man who first discovered that in a big way was somebody who worked with Mel Fisher, who was the one who discovered the Etosha ruins down in Key West. I don't know if you're familiar with them or not, but so he was a major experienced treasure hunter.
Well, that's a heck of a find. It seems like there's pyramids everywhere on the moon.
Everywhere.
Mars,
There's
everywhere.
pyramids everywhere. Even in America, there's pyramids. There's pyramids everywhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you have a hypothesis why they were built in that manner, in a pyramid shape?
Not with any absolute conclusion, no. I think that pyramid shape might be easy to build up. If you start with the base and you keep adding up, you could maybe it's an easier way to build things. But I remember years ago, everybody was talking about energizing yourself by using pyramids. And perhaps there's something to that. There's a lot of indications.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that that uses the pyramid or the shape of a triangle for some kind of enlightenment or a symbol of a cult. It's always something to do with. There's always some kind of symbolism with the pyramid. I do believe, like you said, there's something to do with it. We don't know what it is. It's all speculation to what it is, but definitely something very important.
Yeah, there's been people who've done studies. I probably should do this myself sometime. You take a regular, metal pyramid, and you use razor blade in there. Supposedly, it will get sharper again. I do not know if that's true.
That's interesting. You should try it out. I want to know if that works.
There was a guy that I once knew, and
I can't hear you.
There was a guy I once knew. His bed was in a pyramid shape. He said it gave him more energy.
How?
I don't know.
You sleep with his back arched?
I have no idea.
I don't know how that works.
I don't know. I mean,
we're going to have to do some more research before we discuss this, because otherwise we're just talking heads here.
Hey, well, I'll try and get to the bottom of it, right? Now, another interesting take in your book that I think people find fascinating is the objects around the sun. And this is mind-blowing.
Yeah, how's that? It's very mind-blowing because the sun is very hot. So the first thing you think is, how are those structures standing there?
How did you, Mary, how did you come about finding these objects around the sun?
Okay, I get no credit for this.
Okay.
There was a man from the Netherlands who contacted me back in 2013. And he was a high-tech guy who could take NASA photos and kind of get rid of the dust. He called it dusting and cleaning. Get rid of the interference so that you could really zero in to see these objects. And in the book, I had the original NASA photo, and then I have what he has been able to clean up so you can see the detail of it. These things are huge, absolutely huge. Two of them that we found look like something like a wing structure, and we called one the Flying Isis Hotel, and the other one the Flying Flying Phoenix Hotel, because it's kind of wing shape and then it points down with the tail. Yeah, but it looks like a cruise ship. You can imagine that there are condos there or different kinds of rooms. And I think that there are major ships that cruise the universe. I
believe so.
And that's not just based on my own theories. There's a man named, his last name is Hall, Charles Hall. And he worked, I won't get into his whole bio, but he was with the military, and he interacted with a race of beings called the Tall Whites. And one of the things he said that he learned was that Earth is sort of like a bus station where they were in Nevada, and they would land there and be like tourists for a while. And some of his stories actually amuse me because some of the females of the tall white race would look at the Sears catalogs, and they wanted to see if they could dress and blend in like regular humans, and they would test it by going to Las Vegas. Now, Las Vegas has enough crazy-looking people that they could probably get away with it, but the big goal was to pass for human in Las Vegas.
Did it work?
Apparently, at least to some degree.
All dressed like Elvis, or what's up? Tom Jones.
Yeah, that was a military guy who worked on the infamous Ranger 4 area in Nevada regarding the tall whites, and that story is off the chart. I think there was a documentary on it. I watched that many years ago, and how he interacted with first he saw a little girl, and he felt that she was lost, and he made a way through the brush to get to her, and evidently, I guess he helped her, but another being came. I guess it was a dad or something, and they never really talked to him. He says they made like if I remember correctly, they communicate with like a whistling sound or something that, I don't know if it was a language or what, but that's all. Only
their language is different.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. So he could only discern,
which is to be expected. Right.
So yeah, that was a really strange story. Ranger 4 Harry. That's
I met years ago. I met him and his wife. He's just a down to earth, simple guy. I mean, he's smart as a whip, but he's down to earth and very simple otherwise. And there's no way that he would be making up the stories that he had to share. He's also, at that time anyhow, a devoted Catholic. He wasn't about to be making up stories like this because he was so much into his faith.
Yeah, I mean that was to have that kind of experience is so impacting. I could only imagine how it's affected him up until this day. Seeing something like that.
Well, it changes your life. This is why we're doing the podcast, because we had a lot of stuff happen to us.
Oh yeah, Mary, I've seen
seen UFOs,
so many of them out here in the desert. I've seen so many UFOs. I've put them on video.
Where are you?
We're near Palm Springs,
the Coachella Valley in Southern California.
Okay. Probably 250 miles from Area 51.
Lots of big mountains, lots of strange activity in the mountains. I think, me personally, I experienced everything from UFOs to demonic activity, in my opinion, growing up from a child.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, UFOs and sightings and
mostly demonic, I would say.
Yeah. Also you have that reptilian beat on the ranch. There was a reptilian on the ranch. One evening was reported by some people when I owned a ranch out here. A lot of weird things.
Where I am in North Carolina, I'm in the mountains, and we have Cherokee Little People, we have the Bigfoot, we have sets of giants, we have UFOs, and we have underground military bases. So we're kind of in a active spot here also.
Got a nice little mix over there going on. So I think where we're at was, based off what I saw, and it wasn't just me. This is me growing up with my father and my mother, and we had a big ranch with our grandparents. So most of the time, it wasn't just one person seeing it. It was all of us, or at least half of us. So none of us were crazy. None of us were on drugs. And I was a child, first of all. So we would see a lot of things, anywhere from orbs, glowing orbs, and then we saw a big, massive triangle craft one time that a lot of people end up seeing, end up being reported on the Art Bell show back in the day, if you ever heard of that show, Art Bell.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
He kind of launched all this.
Yeah, so he actually featured us. So he actually featured a picture that I drew, because at the time we were driving and chasing down this UFO on the freeway, and my dad had a T-top Corvette, so I could look up, and I was got a good look at it, and they ended up using my drawing on Coast to Coast website. So that was actually pretty cool.
Yeah,
I was only like 12 years old, I think.
Yeah, I did an interview.
Well, that's a big deal when you're 12.
I was happy. I was like,
yeah, I did an interview with Linda Moulton Howe, and they put it on Art Bell show.
I'm losing your sound again.
How's that? Better?
Not much.
That's weird. It was, yeah.
I can hear your son just completely. His voice comes through real loud, but you fade off into nothingness.
Go talk.
Okay, how's that?
A little better, yeah.
Okay. Now regarding
That's better.
Now regarding the sun, there's obviously the T-shaped, and in your book you also reported anchor shape, and I think they're squares, right? Like cubes, like the Borg ship, for example, from Star Trek. And
there's one that I'll like to describe, and it looks like an extension rod, and it has the details, the shiny metallic details of like a close-up of a flute. It doesn't look like exactly like a flute, but the detail of like a flute is there. And this thing extends way out, and it's longer than the diameter of the sun, and the sun is well over 800,000 miles in diameter, and this thing's longer than that. So the various things that I have photos of in the book are humongous around the sun, just humongous.
These, now in your estimates, are these objects planet size, like planetoids?
They would not be if they're shaped like an extension rod. That's not like a planet. The planet would be, it's like an extension rod.
Well, let me restate that.
And the ones that are that I call the flying hotels, they don't look like a planet either. I mean, anything that's like a planet is round, is an orb, and many of these are not like that at all.
Well, how big do you estimate these objects are? I should have questioned it that way.
Well, like that extension rod is longer than the diameter of the sun, which is over 800,000 miles in diameter. That is mind-boggling, and it's out there flying around.
864,000 miles longer than that.
That is crazy.
I mean, there's so many things in this book, and that's one of them that just really blows my mind. Or I've kind of gotten over it because I've gotten used to it. But when I first discovered these things and learned about these things, I was in shock and awe.
Yeah, it's like, what is it? Like, what is this thing? Why is it so big? And who needs it? And what are they using it for?
So these,
right.
So these,
like I said, there's two of them that look like flying hotels, and I just think those guys are cruising the area.
It's all the elite. It's all the elitists that fake their death, and they're all just having a good time. Maybe.
Maybe. Are these objects bigger than the Earth itself?
All of those around the sun are bigger than Jupiter, which is our largest planet in this solar system. Or galaxy, yes.
Now, I want the listeners
all larger than Jupiter.
I want the listeners to take that in. These objects are larger than Jupiter. Can you imagine seeing that approaching the Earth from? I mean, that is scary. And you mentioned that one that resembles a phoenix. Now, I wonder if that's why the First Nations, venerate the phoenix. Maybe they saw this thing from, obviously it didn't come close to Earth because probably would destroy the Earth from gravitational forces, but maybe they saw something like this in the ancient past. Maybe this flying phoenix hotel thing was, with an eye shot. I don't know. It's
well, you got to
conjecture.
remember that the guy from the Netherlands and myself, we name these things. So we're stealing the names to apply to a craft in the sky. It's not the other way around.
But it does look like a phoenix. It really does.
Mhm.
It
Yeah, it
really,
really does.
really
Some
does.
kind of bird. It looks, yeah. And look at it even has like a direct, like a little tail, has two wings,
Yeah.
has a head, it has the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, that's amazing. Have you ever heard of, I think his name is John Leonard Walson on YouTube?
It's not ringing a bell. No.
He's got some kind of I don't know. He obviously has a telescope and he has some kind of a video camera connected to it in a certain way, but he's been picking up these objects that look similar to what I'm seeing in your book, and they're just like he'll point at the Big Dipper, and some of those stars are not stars; they're just gigantic structures in space, and it's just if you go to his website, it's just crazy. Because he'll actually zoom in on a star and he won't edit it. It just be a straight shot, and it's just amazing.
Is that anything related to the Dyson spheres? Those big giant spheres, they call them Dyson spheres. There's people are discovering them. Also, they look like just big mechanical spheres, little moons. You ever heard of those? No, it's kind of a new phenomenon.
Yeah, I've heard of the Dyson sphere. So, Mary, do you believe that these long extension rods coming from these objects into the sun, do you believe that's some kind of way of them powering their massive, starships? Are they harnessing the sun?
I cannot speak specifically for that.
Right.
But there is a picture, and it's not original with me, but I included in the book, and it shows a orb or attached to the sun with like an umbilical cord, and it stayed there for like 80 hours. And I think it's very easy to imagine that it was perhaps drawing energy from the sun to make their ship go. So sort of like a giant gas station.
Yeah, I saw that, and this thing is massive. Whatever it is attached to the sun, it is so big. I can only guess the size of it. With that being said, do you believe that these objects are, possibly worlds within themselves? A spacefaring race that just, going from galaxy to galaxy, or I don't know. It's just totally conjecture, but we could only imagine what it would be like to walk inside one of these. If it's
I compare some of those to, as I said earlier, a galactic cruise ship, and we just have tourists coming through this part of our world.
Wow. Now there was a I believe it was a Gemini astronaut that reported seeing a I know it sounds funny, but for the audience, but it's in the book, a donut shaped object. You remember that?
Is that funny? That's what it looked like.
It looks like a
It
donut.
does. It looks like an electric blue and white donut, but you can see like some wires in it. And these were taken during the Apollo 10 space flight, I believe.
Okay.
And that went back to 1969. And there's another one that's in the book, and it looks like the inside of an incandescent light bulb, the wire part.
Exactly.
And you go, what in the world is that? And, some of these things you see, and it's really hard to conclude what they are used for or what they do. But that's what they look like.
These little wire things that you see, the big triangle craft that I saw, the one I got a good description of, it had, so, it was more like a boomerang shape in a way. So so it kind of similar. So imagine, the boomerang, and I'm looking at it, is right above me. And on each point of it, the front and the 2 points at the back had a glowing light on it. And in the middle of the boomerang, it had a really bright, like, bulb in the middle of it. And those little, those little toys they make and it has like plasma, and you put your hand on it, and it goes to wherever your fingers are at.
Gotcha.
It kind of looked like that. And then they had these little wires, these little stringy things that look like this, that were connecting from each point to that little bulb in the middle. So that's, when I'm looking at this, it looks kind of like that.
That's what you're thinking of, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Interesting.
Now, I guess, you know, there are things in space that seem organic, right?
Yes. And I think that might be part of the reason that our government is now using the word UAP rather than UFO instead of because that includes phenomena, unidentified aerial phenomena, and some of these things that don't have a conventional structure to them, you know, really are in their own category. So I prefer to use the term UFO. I don't intend to change, but
Yeah.
The UAP has validity to it, and I did, yeah, anyhow.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I don't tend to trend with the UAP. I think it's just it's totally generic. There's I don't know if you saw this. I believe it was one of these government agencies, Aero. They put out a new logo, and it says in Latin, "Universum mutao," which means I changed the universe, and they have titled, "The universe is changing. Our life is what our thoughts make it." I thought that was, you know, a little curious for them to say something like that. And they have the new published on, this is a 2022 annual report of unidentified aerial phenomenon, and it's dated Thursday, the 12th of January, 2023. So this is a new thing that they put out. So it seems like disclosure's coming out, you know, little at a time.
It's only going to come out with shows like yours, with websites like mine, with books like I've just come out with. The government's only going to expose what they are forced to expose. And when they get enough pressure coming at them, then they'll tell us a little bit. And I don't think they're going to ever tell us more than they feel like they absolutely have to.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier a deep underground base or underground bases. And when I hear that, I always recall the story of Phil Schneider, who said that while being under Dulce, New Mexico, when he was in the military, out of some kind of operations, they dug down and they hit a wall and they broke through, and there was some kind of reptilian race, and a little war started. And he says that this being like waved its in front of his chest, and a blue beam like lasered off his fingers. And
put a hole in his chest too.
It really messed him up. But later, I guess, you know, supposedly he committed suicide in a strange way where you can't commit suicide yourself.
They said he committed suicide, but they found his hands bounded and he was strangled to death.
Yeah, so that's suicide.
Yeah, that's very interesting suicide, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. What can you tell us about these underground bases in your research?
I have a book called Underground Bases, Military Bases Hidden in North Carolina Mountains. And again, like this book, there's a lot of pictures in it, not quite as many, but quite a few. And I first learned about that from a couple who kept coming into where I was working at the time. And they were kind of shy, and they would gently get into conversations about UFOs with me because of the website I was doing. And they kept doing this. And finally one day I said, well, why don't we get together? You can tell me some of your stories.
Yeah.
And they agreed. And we met at their camper trailer. And when I got there, I found out that they weren't wanting to talk about UFOs. The woman had been raised on a military base that was doing secret stuff. Her father was deep into it. And she and her husband had been checking me out to see if they could trust me. Mm-hmm. And it took quite a while. And when they finally decided they could, they wanted me to know that there was an underground base here in North Carolina, and that they were doing mind manipulations and mind control, and it was city size, and it was 6 stories deep, and it was self-sufficient. And Eventually, I was able to get confirmation from other people that this was real. And from there on, I just began to kind of magically have people come on my path who were aware of these underground bases. And anyhow, that's how that information began.
Yeah,
But there's one, it's usually under public land. The one that I mentioned is known locally as PARI, P-A-R-I. It stands for Pisgah Astronomical Research Institute. It originally was part of the Department of Defense back in the Cold War days. And then supposedly it's now just an astronomical research place. It's a cover because people have still seen security guards that look like super soldiers at the gate sometimes. And sometimes you can just drive in there without a problem, and sometimes you can't. And my own experience when I've gotten close to that place, it's like my head feels weird. And it's like I want to get away. And each time I've done that, I've had other people in the car, and we've all experienced it. People have also experienced that same, what I call people repellent, at the facility beneath the Smoky Mountain National Park. And what I was going to say is these things are usually under public land. One is under the Smoky Mountain National Park. One is in the Linville Gorge area, not too far from where the Brown Mountain Lights are. Another one is at the Chimney Rock State Park. They tend to be on public lands. One's under Mount Mitchell.
Wow. Did you ever visit one?
You mean to get inside? No, I've been to no.
I don't know.
Not even sure. No, absolutely not. I've been to the entrance and of two of them, but no, I have not. I've been to the entrance of more than that. It's just that you're wanting to know what's going on inside, and I'm not the brave soul who's gone down there to find out for you.
Well, maybe you might volunteer one day.
No, thank you.
No, I know some of the stuff that goes on there, and I just don't want to do that to myself.
Oh, that's interesting too to know.
Can you cover off on that? What?
Well, for example, the thing with the mind control, the fact that when I get close, my head feels weird.
Wow.
And I call it people repellent. I mean, they don't want you there. And one man that I interviewed when he was young, he worked at a tree farm that's not too far from this Perry Center. And the people who worked on this tree farm had seen caged animals being taken into this facility. Why? What were they doing with those animals? I also got a report from a man who was in social services, and he talked about satanic things around there.
Whoa.
And
that's always a common occurrence with that, right? Always got to be some satanic things going on deep underground.
Wow.
Well, it makes you wonder, and that's why I don't really want to wade deep into some of this.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
You do know whole 2 more podcasts talking about that. There's so much to talk about.
What's your overall opinion on these spacefaring beings? Do you think they're interdimensional, or?
I think it's a hodgepodge. I think we have so many species from so many different places. They all have their own unique look. They all have their own motivations for being around the Earth. Some are for good, some are neutral, and some are just plain selfish. You know what?
Yeah. You got the whole.
So you can't lump ETs into one category.
No, you can't. You have, just like people. There's different mentalities. I suspect with each species. But thank you.
There's certain species I want nothing to do with. I want nothing to do with the reptilians. I want nothing to do with the tall grays that are about 4 feet tall and have the pointed chin. They're out for their own selfish benefits and are behind a lot of the breeding programs that are going on. So I don't know. I just don't want to have anything to do with the bad guys. How's that?
Yeah, I don't need to anyways.
No. Well, thank you for coming on and sharing your knowledge and sharing your book, The Insights on Spy in the Sky. We discussed Mars, fascinating things on Mars, pyramids and habitats, and crash UFOs, and on the moon we found a pyramid that you found, Mary, and that's really interesting. In Antarctica, the ancient ruins that seem to be coming out of the ice as it melts away.
And the book is very, very, very straightforward, and it's very easy to read, and it has the pictures. That's the best part. You're reading the details, and you're also getting the picture behind it. You're not having to imagine it.
And we're going to post some of these pictures on our website also.
You have all the coordinates. Everything's here.
And yeah, absolutely. And also what's fascinating is the sun and these massive, massive objects bigger than the planet Earth. That's just, I mean, amazing, but also at the same time frightening. And we covered off the underground bases. Can you tell the listeners where to find your books, your website?
Yeah, plug in all your outlets.
Great, super. Thank you for coming on. Really appreciate.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was really a joy speaking with you, and speaking with someone with so much knowledge and so much research in the years of this paranormal stuff, and
Especially on a subject that nobody really looks into.
No, and there's some things I learned. When I bought your book. I learned some new things in there that I did not know, and I appreciate that very much. So